Hello and welcome our blood viewers to RTD's News English Edition. As usual, we bring to you the major and top highlights of tonight. The head of state presides over the 16th meeting of the Council of Ministers. And on the international scene, the UN says Israel practices certain Palestinian presence in northern Gaza. Those were the major and top highlights. Welcome back to our news from our blood viewers. Under the chairmanship of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, the Council of Ministers held on Tuesday, 22nd October, its 16th session for the current year 2024. During the session, the ministers discussed and approved six legal drafts on its agenda. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation commented on the highlights of this session, which discussed six legal issues. Let's listen to him.
Rahim, sous la présidence du chef de l'État, son Excellence M. Ismaël Omar Guelleh, s'est tenue la 16e séance du Conseil des ministres en ce mardi 22 octobre 2024.
Ministry of Energy in charge of natural resources. First question, draft law on rural electrification. The purpose of this bill is to regulate the production and distribution of electrical energy from all energy sources by any natural or legal person in rural areas in the Republic of Djibouti. Renewable energies are considered a natural resource that makes a significant contribution to the development of rural electrification. Rural electrification is a major challenge in many developing countries, particularly in the most remote and isolated regions. Rural populations often have limited access to electrification, which can have a negative impact on their quality of life, their access to information, their education, and their economic and social development. To remedy this situation, policies and programs need to put in place to extend access to electricity in rural areas. It is in this context that the bill plays an important role. The bill aims to facilitate access to electricity in rural areas by creating favorable conditions for investment in electricity infrastructure. It also aims to encourage the use of renewable energy sources to reduce dependence on fossil fuels and to promote sustainable development. The draft defines the regimes applicable to the production, transmission, and distribution of electricity in rural areas and determines the role and mission of the state in the sector. The adoption of the draft will make it possible, on the one hand, to promote the economic and social development of rural areas by offering them access to electricity and modern technologies, and on the other hand, to ensure an equitable distribution of energy sources throughout the whole country. This text will also serve as a springboard for developing rural electrification projects carried out by the state, non-state, private, or NGO players, contributing to the development of this sub-sector according to a scheme approved by MERN. Ministry of Labor in charge of formalization and social protection. Second question, draft law approving the financial accounts of the National Institute of Public Administration, INAP, for the 2023 financial year. INAP's financial accounts for the 2023 financial year shows an income of 122,349,421 Djiboutian francs and expenses of 134,505,000 Djiboutian francs. Income of the year amounts to 122.3 million Djiboutian francs compared with 114.7 million in 2022. It consists mainly of the government subsidy, 99.4 million Djiboutian francs, and external subsidies received from organizations such as UNDP, Arilos, SGTD, and etc. In connection with training activities, 15.2 million Djiboutian francs. Expenses for the year totaled 134.4 million Djiboutian francs compared to 117.8 million in 2022. The main items were staff consists of 66.4 million Djiboutian francs and other external purchases, 55.2 million Djiboutian francs. There will be 27 employees in 2023. In 2023, as part of its efforts to build the capacity of public servants, INAP will launch the Public Organization Management Program, implement specific training in certain sectors, fire safety for labor inspectors, language tests for civil registry employees, train local agents and elected representatives, and train public administration executives in professional English. Ministry of Cities, Urban Planning and Housing. Third question, draft law approving the financial accounts of the Urban Rehabilitation and Social Housing Agency, Arilos, for the 2023 financial year. The purpose of the bill is to approve the financial accounts of Arilos for the 2023 financial year, which shows an income of 2,224,635,000 and expenses of 2,107,457,000 with a net profit of 117 million Djiboutian francs. Profits for the year will be 117.1 Djiboutian million francs in 2023 compared with 146.6 million in 2022. Revenue was 204.8 million, higher than the previous year. However, revenue fell short of the budget rate for the Diriyah flats in Tajurra in the Sheikh Mohammed housing estate in 2023. Operating income plot sales amounted to 1.86 billion, up 158.4 million in 2022. Expenses will amount to 2.1 billion Djiboutian francs compared with 1.8 billion in 2022. This increase is mainly due to provisions from increment of receivable and staff costs. Trade receivables will amount to 989.4 million in 2023 compared with 862.4 million. Other receivables amounted to 379 million in 2023. Long-term debt amounted to 10.1 billion in 2023 compared with 9.5 million in 2022, mainly comprising loans from FATES 2.5 billion, FSD 3.3 billion, and BOA 2.2 billion. This debt increased by nearly 423 million compared to 2022. During the 2022 financial year, Loss proceeded with the marketing of 440 flats, the marketing of 836 social plots in Nasib, the reconstruction of 60 damaged housing units through materials loans, the continuation of reconstruction activities in the Old Balbala, construction of 2 roads to open up the district, the rehousing of 23 families affected by the reconstruction, the launch of several studies to upgrade the old districts, and the issue of 336 land registration certificates as part of the amicable transfer procedure.
2022, qui était arrêté à 146 608 000 francs Djibouti.
During the session, the ministers also discussed draft decisions related to the appointment of some officials to some administrative positions.
La quatrième question est relative à un projet de loi portant adoption des comptes financiers 2023 de l'Imprimerie nationale du Djibouti.
Ministry of Communication, Posts and Telecommunications. Fourth question. Draft law adopting the 2023 financial accounts of the Djiboutian National Printing House. The IND's financial account for the 2023 financial year shows an income of 390,287,000 francs and expenses of 450,150,000 francs. Income for the year amounted to 390.2 million, an increase of 7.9 million. This increase is due to the rise in the government subsidy from 171 million in 2022 to 233.7 million in 2023. Production sold, sales of printed matter and others fell by 22.9 million. Expenses for the year amounted to 415.1 million, up to 32.7 million on the previous year. The main expenses items were personnel costs 221.8 million, up by 28.6 million, and financial expenses 25.7 million. The printing works acquired fixed assets worth 7.1 million in office and IT equipment, furniture, and industrial equipment. Ministry of Trade and Tourism. Fifth question. Draft degree on the creation, organization, and operation of the National Standard Community (CNN). The draft degree is taking in application of Article 9th of the law number 33/N/8 of the Legislature bearing adoption of the National System of Standardization and Promotion of the Quality of February 14, 2019. The draft degree defines the object, the guiding principles, the composition, and the function of the National Committee of Standardization placed under the supervision of the Ministry of Trade and Tourism. The National Committee of Standardization is a consultative, advisory, and orientation body. It is made up of 7 members representing the departments concerned by the issue of standardization and is responsible for coordinating the activities and work of the technical standardization committees. By approving their work program, it sets priorities in the fields of standardization and approves draft standards drawn up by the CNT. The draft order therefore completes the institutional framework governing the field of standardization. Ministry of Labor in charge of formalization and social protection. Sixth question. The following are appointed. To the Ministry of Health, Mr. Musa Ibrahim Sugi, Technical Advisor to the Ministry of Health. Mr. Muharram Fuad Abdullah, Technical Advisor to the Ministry of Health. Mr. Mahmoud Ahmed Gedi, Technical Advisor to the Ministry of Health. Mr. Abdurrahman Hussein Arale, Technical Advisor to the Ministry of Health. Mr. Idris Farah Miguel, Technical Advisor to the Ministry of Health. Dr. Ahmed Hussein Miguel, Medical Inspector. The Ministry of National Education and Vocational Training, Mr. Osman Hussein Sherdon, Senior Technical Advisor, Mr. Abdi Dirir Gire, Technical Advisor to the Ministry of Education, Mr. Garat Akadir Dabali, Technical Advisor to the Ministry of Education, Mrs. Aisha Farah Iltere, Technical Advisor to the Ministry of Education, Mr. Muhammad Abdul Ali, General Inspector of the National Education, Mr. Abdullah Farah Wa'is, General Inspector of Education, Mr. Mahdi Umar Farah, General Inspector of the Administration, Mr. Saleh Alwan Iti, Executive Secretary of the National Higher Education Committee, Mr. Muhammad Ilmi Asowi, General Director of Administration, Mrs. Lula Ali Ilabi, General Director of Schooling and General Education, Mr. Abdurrahman Ahmad Abdu, Director General of ICT Development, Mrs. Hebo Awad Ali, General Manager of Examination Competitions and Assessments, Mrs. Nim'a Hassan Ismail, Director General of the National Education Training Center, Mr. Muhammad Mirani Ali, Director General of Planning and Data, Mr. Musa Muhammad Ali, Center Regional Manager, Madam Fardusa Muhammad Abdullahi, Director of Legal Affairs and Legislation, Mr. Muhammad Ibrahim Musa, Director of Internal Audit. At the Ministry of Economy and Finance in charge of Industry, Mrs. Suad Muhammad Abdi, Director of Training, Capacity Building and Regulatory Assessment. Secretary of State for Investment and Private Sector Development, Mrs. Safiya Abdullah Isa, Administrative and Financial Director, Mrs. Aisha Humad Muhammad, Director of Promotion and External Relations. And last but not least, communications. The Minister of Defense in charge of relations with Parliament gave a mission report on his participation in the African Defense Leaders Conference held from 15 to 17 October 2024 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The Minister for Higher Education and Research have submitted a mission report on his participation in the World Francophone Science Week held from 16 to 19 October 2024 in Toulouse, France. The Minister of Energy in charge of natural resources gave a report on the organization of World Energy Day, the theme of which was energy efficiency, a driver of sustainable development in Djibouti, which took place on 21st of October 2024 in Djibouti, Republic of Djibouti. The Minister for the Environment and Sustainable Development reported on his participation in the 35th session of the Council of Arab Ministers in charge of Environmental Affairs, which was held from 15 to 17 October 2024 in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Delita Mohammed Delita, received on Tuesday the new Ambassador of the European Union, Mrs. Dinsa El Naluniti, for a friendly visit. During the meeting, the two sides discussed ways to enhance cooperation between the House of Representatives and the European Union. The Speaker of the House of Representatives and the European Union Ambassador also agreed to improve the current and future programs of the Union. This meeting reflects the willingness to cooperate to achieve common goals. In addition, the Speaker and the European diplomat addressed the current geopolitical situation in the Horn of Africa, highlighting the challenges and prospects faced by the European Union in the Republic of Djibouti, with a focus on success in areas that require enhanced cooperation. A high-level Djibouti delegation led by the Minister of Economy and Finance, Mr. Ilyas Moussa Dawale, held a meeting with the World Bank's Vice President for the Middle East and North Africa. The meeting was attended by key figures, including the Minister of Budget, Mr. Osman Ibrahim Roble, and the Minister of State in charge of Digital Economy and Innovations, Mrs. Mariam Hamadou Ali. The meeting held in-depth discussions aimed at strengthening the partnership between Djibouti and the World Bank. The talks centered on the need for inclusive private sector-led growth aimed at creating jobs, especially for the youth. Participants also emphasized the importance of developing human capital to enhance productivity and improve employment opportunities for Djiboutians. The discussion also addressed supporting the country in its efforts to improve the resilience of vulnerable communities to climate change. The delegation emphasized the need to develop infrastructure and enhance connectivity, both digital and energy, to ensure equitable access to development opportunities. After intensive activities organized by the Ministry of Women and Family as part of the National Rural Women's Week, the action-packed week came to close today at Boadi Mall in Djibouti. The closing ceremony of the National Rural Women's Week, chaired by the Ministry of Women and Family, Mrs. Muna Usman Adan, was attended by the Ministry of Youth and Culture, Dr. Hibo Mumin Asowe, the Secretary General of the National Union of Djiboutian Women, and a large number of women leaders, including women deputies and directors, along with several members of the government and international partners, such as the UNDP representative. Djiboutian rural women showcased rich and diverse craft products that reflects the Djiboutian identity and culture. Of Women and Family, Mrs. Muna Usman Adan explained that this National Week dedicated to rural women aims to encourage and support the creativity and innovation of Djiboutian rural women, adding that this trade week aims to promote the products of local craft cooperatives. Under the patronage of the Executive Director of the Central Bank of Djibouti, Mr. Hassan Musa, the bank announced the launch of the modernization of a bank supervision application system, in short known as BSA. This project, implemented in partnership with a specialized team from the Central Bank of Mozambique, represents an important step forward in the modernization of Djibouti's banking supervision tools. Umar Ibrahim, head of BSA at the Central Bank of Djibouti, moderated the demonstration session for local banks. He highlighted the new features of the BSA system, emphasizing its usefulness in strengthening supervision and improving efficiency in the banking sector. The modernization of BSA systems will allow the Central Bank of Djibouti to improve its monitoring of financial institutions, thereby ensuring better transparency and stricter management for the banking sector. This project is part of the desire to enhance the central bank's technological infrastructure to support the country's economic growth. Djibouti Social Development Agency and Djibouti Red Crescent signed agreement, a partnership for social protection and food crisis response. The General Director of the Djibouti Social Development Agency and the Djibouti Red Crescent today signed an agreement aimed at strengthening social protection and responding to food crisis affecting vulnerable populations in the country. The ceremony was organized by the General Director of the Djibouti Agency for Social Development in the presence of Mehdi Mohammed and the Secretary General of the Djibouti of Red Crescent. This cooperation falls within the framework of the emergency project Social Protection in Response to Food Crisis, which aims to provide immediate and lasting assistance to communities affected by economic and environmental crisis. Upon arrival in the city of Unity, the Japanese ambassador was received by the prefect of the region, Mr. Hassan Abdi Roble, the president of the regional council, Mr. Mahad Hussein Ahmed, and the chief physician of the Dikhil Medical Center, Dr. Jama' Musawais. This visit began with a meeting with local authorities at the prefect's office, where discussions centered on ways to enhance bilateral cooperation, especially local health infrastructures. A contract signing ceremony was then held at the medical center between the ambassador of Japan and Dr. Jama' Musawais to finance the expansion of the pediatric ward at the Dikhil Medical Center. This project provisioned for the construction of the 2 new rooms of the hospital in addition to integrated toilets. The signing aims to enhance the capacity of the health center to provide improved health services for children in response to the urgent need for adequate infrastructure to improve the care of the region's children. Within the framework of the European Union Fund and Civic Community Support Project, the National Association of Local Communities conducted a field visit to the Duli district of Obokh region. This initiative brought together several key players, including Mr. Ali Rufa, Permanent Secretary of the National Association of Local Authorities of Djibouti, as well as the local team in charge of the managing of the project. The delegation also included the Assistant Governor, Mr. Muhammad Ali Umar, Directors of Decentralized Technical Departments, local associations and beneficiary representatives. Mrs. Fatima Yusuf Umar from the staff of the delegate ministers in charge of decentralization was also present. The main objective of this mission was to assess the impact of the project, particularly through the training of households on the use and maintenance of solar kits. 100 kits designed to improve access to clean and sustainable energy were distributed to local households. This energy aspect is critical to the development of this isolated area. Discussions among the participants allowed to highlight the significant progress made by the project, while of course identifying the remaining challenge to ensure the sustainability of the actions taken. This mission demonstrates the coordinated commitment of the European Union and the Association in favor of sustainable and inclusive development, serving the communities of Obokh region. Shifting gears towards the international scene now, the Israeli army announced that the office on Monday evening and that its security system intercepted some of the 33 rockets fired from Lebanon towards the northern of Galilee region. And on the other side of the international scene, the Israeli army on Monday evening said that its security system intercepted some 33 rockets fired from Lebanon towards northern Israel. According to the IDF, 32 rockets were fired from Lebanon towards the region and the Golan Heights, some of which were intercepted and others hit the ground. The rockets fire targeted sirens in several parliaments in the region of both Golan Heights. Well, by this, our blood viewers, we finally conclude this edition. Thank you for being with us, and make sure to tune in later for more as usual. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.